Hey there, Syro Church. Pastor Paul here, just bringing your weekly dose of the gospel, just a word of encouragement to keep us all grounded in Jesus. And just getting out of the office a little bit today, a little work being done in the gym, so thought I'd enjoy these contemplative, rainy, cloudy days, but a good day just to turn our attention to the Lord and be reminded from our previous Sunday's message, just taking one reflection just to ponder and contemplate and consider a little bit more deeply the implications of God's word in our lives and being able to apply it and see fruit actually bear. And so it doesn't just increase our knowledge, but also increases and stirs our affections for Christ, our love for one another, and our desire to be ambassadors of reconciliation. This last week we were looking at Isaiah 31 and 32. And we've seen again and again just the heartache of God's people when instead of trusting in the Lord, they're going to other sources, other people, other support structures to provide safety and security. And one of the places that the people of God was turning was to Egypt. They were looking to Egypt, thinking that they could just come to the rescue, provide some military support to help protect them from the growing threat of the invasion by Assyria. And it's interesting because in this verse in Isaiah 31, it says, verse 1, woe to those who go down to Egypt for help and rely on horses and trust in chariots because they are many and in horsemen because they are very strong, but do not look to the Holy One of Israel or consult the Lord. Which is so ironic when you think of the scriptures in Psalm 20, verse 7 says, for some trust in chariots and some trust in horses, but we will put our hope in the Lord. And so here's God's people doing the exact opposite of what they knew to be true, that they knew that God was their rescuer, he was their deliverer, and yet that was more like in theory, but in practice and in reality, when the threat really began to rise, God's people cave and they run to Egypt for help. And what we learned about last week is that Egypt was not going to be able to come to the rescue or come to deliver them. And even if they thought they could buy the help and buy the support and get them through, but the comfort that we have today, and even I think of the times in which we live, and even regardless of next week with all the election chaos and drama, Isaiah 32, chapter 32 reminds us, behold, a king will reign in righteousness. And this king is in reference to Jesus. And so the comfort and the confidence, the assurance that we have that Jesus, even right now, seated at the right hand of God the Father Almighty, is reigning in righteousness. And that in his reign of righteousness, that he is like a hiding place, he is like a shelter from the storm, that he is like a stream of water in a dry place. And so we can find shelter, we can find a hiding place in the shadow of his wings, that we can find water for our thirsty souls. And that when the king reigns in righteousness, as Jesus reigns in righteousness, that it really does reveal the hearts and souls of mankind. And when you see that when a king reigns in righteousness, Isaiah 32 wraps up with this, what that affects and produces is peace. And if you remember that Hebrew word shalom, it's so much richer and deeper than just the English language of peace. That this is not just the absence of conflict, but it's also the restoration, the rebuilding of what's been broken, and actually making it better than its original state. And so the shalom that Jesus brings and in his reign of righteousness brings about a restoration, a remaking, a rebuilding of what's broken, not just an absence of conflict, but a wholeness and completeness and restoration. And to know that the result of that righteousness is quietness and trust forever. And so it's just an opportunity to take a deep breath right now and check your pulse, and to be reminded that God's people will abide in a peaceful habitation, in secure dwellings, in quiet, resting places. And I don't know about you, but that encourages me, that comforts me, that reminds me that no matter what the outcome is next week, Jesus is still Lord. He is reigning and ruling in righteousness, and he will come to set up his kingdom, and his will, as it's done in heaven, will be done on earth in fullness and in reality. And in the meantime, we have a responsibility. We have an opportunity to share the gospel message, to share the message of hope, message of peace and joy in believing that Jesus Christ, crucified, risen, ruling, reigning, and will one day return to remake all things new. And just on a little side note, just wanted to remind you that this Sunday we're going to be back indoors. There'll be a third Sunday inside worshiping. Just one clarification. We are wearing our masks for the entire service, not just during the singing, but also when we're seated. So if there's any concerns or confusion around that, just wanted you to rest assured and to know that we will be wearing masks for the entire service. So if that helps for those of you that may have been on the fence on attending, just wanted you to know about that. But we would love to have you join us. And just be reminded, we also got to set our clocks back this weekend. It's going to be Sunday, November 1st. Crazy to think about. And it's also Communion Sunday, where we're going to remember and proclaim the Lord's death until he returns again, as we look to the cross and to know that that is a place that we find our hope, we find our peace and joy in believing that God has taken the weak things and the foolish things to shame the wise and the strong. And so, love you, Sea Road Church. Know that I'm praying for you and look forward to worshiping together with you this Sunday. Take care and God bless.